Well, good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Brothas-in-law. Uh, we have a very special show for you guys tonight. Tonight's title is The Whys Behind the Thin Blue Line. And this is a little bit different than what we've done before. We always talk about law enforcement and what the officer goes through. Well, tonight we have two lovely young ladies here tonight that took time out their busy schedule to join us to give us their perspective of what it was like being our wives as police officers. And we'll get into that and find out what their mindset was and what they were thinking and how they feel. Every day, Mike and I put that uniform on and we walked out the door. Was this our last kiss? Right. And so we'll talk about that tonight and get these ladies' perspective. So the hope is that you see that police officers are humans too, right? We put that uniform on every day. We kiss our wives goodbye. We kiss our kids goodbye with the hopes of God blessing us to be able to come back home to our family. So, like I said, before we get into that, Mike, welcome back.
Hey,
We
good
had
to
a
be
great
back.
show last week, man. That was
It was
dope.
a good one. It was a good one last week.
Yeah, it
We
really
had
was. It
great
really was.
discussions, a lot of great comments. Hey, Tone, I see you, Tone. I see
Tell
you,
me.
Goat. I see you, Zach. Hey, Meg.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, Meg. It's good to see you.
Yeah. So, again, welcome everybody, and go ahead and smash that like button for us, and if you can, go ahead and share it out for us, because I think this will be a good conversation that we need to have. So, ladies, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
So, which one you want to go first and tell us a little bit about yourself? And you don't have to go into detail, but just
My name's Qantas Bradley. I'm Mike's wife, 15 years. We have a daughter, and then I have two stepsons, California native, Oakland Raiders fan.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, Q.
Little something,
Next up.
Stacy, married to Corey. Been married 22 years. We have 4 kids, 2 grandchildren. Loving the show that they're doing. I can't wait to see how this one turns out.
All right.
Well, all right. Well, thank you so much. Again, thank you, ladies, for joining us tonight. Okay, so here we go.
All right.
The whys behind the thin blue line.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? What is, I can say, how do I want to phrase this? What is the daily mindset, or what was your daily mindset on a daily basis? Like, how did you feel every time Mike walked out that door?
Well, I was in a different position because I actually walked out the door with Mike. We worked together at the same agency. So I had on 2 hats. I had to worry about Mike, and then I also had to figure out how to adjust the 3 kids that we had in our house. So I had all these hats that I was rocking at that time.
Yeah, right.
But our goal was to return home together at the end of that evening.
Yeah.
Okay. So you worked in the agency with Mike.
Correct.
All right. So that means you were able to hear certain transmissions and things like that when it came out over the radio.
Right. So all those calls
Okay.
were the calls that were intense. I was hearing Mike going to those calls.
Oh my.
And I was able to hear in real time what was going on, how it was unfolding on the radio as I'm sitting in my car listening to this.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. How did that make you feel? Like, were you always on edge, or I mean, did you not try to put too much thought into these calls he was going to?
Well, you try not to put too much thought into it, but of course you're putting a lot of thought in it because I had my coworkers, but I also had my husband
right
in the middle of these calls also. So I was constantly reading the updates on our computer to see what was going on. And I wasn't able to really get a relief until you would hear them all say code 4, which is everything's secure, everything's good.
I couldn't even imagine that.
Right.
Yeah, I imagine that was a challenge.
What about,
you know?
Oh yeah. I mean,
you seeing it. She, like I say, she had the same computer in her vehicle that police officers had. She's what do you call a community service officer? But she had the same stuff that we had, you know. So when that call came out, you know, she like you say, real time, she could hear and know everything I was doing or what was going on. God forbid nothing major happened as far as me getting shot or getting hurt like that or anything.
That's good.
You know? Yeah. But you know, I can imagine just that stress level, because Corey, me and you, we understand that stress level just waiting for that next call. Stacey, let me ask you, Stacey, when Corey went out that door, now you were at home, right? Taking care of your family, handling your business. But when Corey went out that door, you knew there was a real possibility that something could go wrong that day.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, how did you feel? How did you cope with that? You know what I'm saying?
I did a lot of praying because I never had an easy feeling until he came home from work. Mm-hmm. But I also threw myself into the house, the kids, and made myself busy. And every once in a while throughout the day, you know, I would text him and say, hey, you good? Or whatever. When I hear from him, that made me feel better. And when I knew he was in the driveway, I could just like breathe and, okay, he's home. We're good.
The day was successful, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I ever mentioned this, but like when I used to sit in my driveway before I drove off, I would always just say a short little prayer. Like, just, you know, be with me, Lord. Just let me, you know, come home at the end of my shift, you know, whatever it was that I was saying, and then, you know, drive off. And I would just like I just did, I would take a deep breath and like let it out and like, okay, let's go, because you never knew what was going to happen, right? Yeah. So my question, Stacey, is, well, how did you again cope with, or how did you deal with me making that transition? Because, you know, I retired from the military, and so I had just recently came back from Iraq, right? And then not even a year later, maybe a year later, I was retired, and like shortly after that, 6 months later, I was off to the State Police Academy. So how did you handle that transition? How did that make you feel? Like, oh God, this dude is nuts.
That's what I was thinking. Like, is he serious? He's doing something. To me, it's more dangerous in my eyes than being in the military. Even though, I mean, when you were gone,
in many ways,
it's still dangerous. It's still dangerous, but it's a different kind of danger.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I also knew when we got together and everything, you talked about what your lifetime goal and dreams were, and one of them was to be in law enforcement. Mm-hmm. So throughout the years, and especially towards the end of retirement, I knew that that's where you were going to go. So I had to mentally prepare myself and say, okay, we need to really start praying and really believe in God and hope that nothing major goes wrong. It was hard. It really was. I don't think I showed it, but I knew that that's what you wanted to do. So I embraced it.
Yeah.
Now, when Q and I met, I was already a police officer. So, but Q, let me ask you, did you have any second thoughts about being with somebody who was a police officer? Had you ever been with a police officer before?
See,
Don't answer that, Q.
Right.
Don't answer that.
You see, I slipped in.
Let's get it
No.
into.
Don't
No.
answer that, Q.
No, I have not. I didn't have any problems with it because I was already prepared to know that you were going to work late shifts, that you were going to have to work forced overtime, that at any time your schedule would change. So I already came in knowing this was going to happen. I guess the hardest was for me was just trying to juggle the kids when you were supposed to be at home and we were supposed to be home together. And then you called and said, okay, you need to go pick them up from daycare. And then I had a nail appointment or something that I was planning on doing. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I had to cancel that. Then I had to go figure out how to go pick up 3 kids at different daycare spots. So little things like that. But yeah, I think I was prepared though, because I was already working in law enforcement and just kind of knew what the shifts looked like.
That was a good plus for you.
Right, correct.
A good advantage, I should say. Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we could have done it without you guys' support.
Oh yeah,
absolutely not.
No.
There's no way. You're right about that. Absolutely. I appreciate you both. You know, because I know how it is, and I can definitely see that other side of it. With the wives or the significant others. You know, Zach says, Mike, Mr. Cool though. I can picture him walking into a scene like, "Come on, guys, let's just calm down." But you know what, Zach? I'm kind of a low key guy. In uniform or out of uniform, I'm what you get. So you're right. I am the calm one. I'd rather definitely try to diffuse a situation with my words than have to fight. Although when it's time to fight, it's time to get it on. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, but you do. You know what? You do almost have to become a different person in some ways, though, when you put that uniform on and you are hitting that street. And I think after a while, an officer can become, I don't know, desensitized to some things, which you got to make sure that doesn't translate at home. You should make sure it doesn't translate on the street too. Don't get me wrong, but on the street, when you see gross stuff, what people would say is, "Oh, that's terrible." As an officer, I'm thinking of it as procedure. Okay, I got to do A, B, C, and D. I'm thinking of it from the job's perspective. This is what I got to do. This is what I got to accomplish. Okay, and this is how I'm gonna get there. But I think for the wives, when those husbands come home, this is a question to both of you, either one of you. When we come home, how do you feel? Did you feel that we brought any of that home with us? Did we seem like a police officer at home as well?
I'm going to say no. Corey was very good at keeping how he felt on the job outside in his car. He never brought it in the house. If he did, I never seen it. He might have just had a moment to himself, but as far as us seeing it as a family, he never did.
Right. And same here. Mike, when Mike left work stayed at work.
Right. Yeah.
When Mike came home, Mike was just like he is now. And a lot of my friends, when they found out he was a police officer, they were like, "What?"
I can't believe it.
They're like, "He's a police officer." He's so just like chill and black and cool. They were like, "What?" They were really shocked. But
I can see that.
Yeah. So he did a good job with leaving it there. But we did talk about some of his calls when he did come home. And then that was the end of that. And then we went to family stuff.
Yeah. We talked about some calls too. I mean, that was about it. But
yeah.
Pretty good overall.
Yeah, you know, I think for most officers, you do your best not to tell a lot what transpired out there. Because you know they worry enough as it is. So most officers aren't going to really get into, you know, what they do on a daily basis, because it is an emotional roller coaster. And I mean, we talk amongst each other about certain things, but you do your best not to bring that home, to cause stress and more stress on the wives. Now I don't know if I ever told Stacy this story.
Oh,
but
you better think about it. Wait a minute.
but it's fine now. I'm home and I'm no longer with the department, so I'm good now. But it was one day I was getting off work. I think I was working day shift, and I was on my way home, and a guy had came out the neighborhood, ran the stop sign, and at this time, and I'm like literally around the corner from our house. And I said, well, I had shut everything down, my camera, my computer. And I was like, all right, let me just stop this guy and said, hey, slow, don't, stop at the stop sign, whatever. So I get up to the car to introduce myself and see he's got a gun on the front passenger seat. And I tell him, hey, wherever you don't go reaching for that gun. Oh, it's not loaded. It's not loaded. That's all good. Don't touch the freaking gun. What does he do? He goes and touches a gun, right? And so, draw down and put the gun down, put the freaking gun down. He's like, it's not loaded. It's not loaded. Well, the only reason why he didn't get shot because he ain't had the gun pointed at me. He had the actual barrel of the gun pointing towards the passenger seat, and I could see what he was trying to do. He was trying to rack it back and show me that it wasn't loaded. And so after that, I was like, oh my God, dude. So I got the gun out of his hands. And I'm like, dude, I lit into him. I think my foot is probably still in his rear end. But from that moment, I had to take a second before I came home because I was like, man, I mean, I was dropping a lot of F-bombs. Like, dude, like my house is right here. Like he could have shot and killed me right there.
Right.
Or I could have shot and killed him. But whatever the case might have been, Stacy would have heard the gunshots. Because it was that close.
It was that close.
To our house.
And by the time you got home, you still were at that level.
Oh yeah, I was still like.
So it took you a minute to bring that down.
Yeah, I don't think I said anything. Matter of fact, I don't even think I ever told you that story.
I don't think you don't. This is the first time.
Yeah, see, those type of things we did not try to bother them with because we knew it was enough stress on them anyway. So when they didn't come home, now I would say for Stacy, she like clockwork. If I was on day shift, like, and this is my question to Stacy. So when I was on day shift or whatever shift I was working, I would get off on the hour after my 8-hour shift. And if I wasn't home by maybe 15 after, because I usually always got home right on the hour or right a couple minutes before.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just sit in our driveway and then mark off. And if I wasn't home at a certain time, she was blowing up my cell phone.
Yes.
Well, there was one particular time.
I can imagine.
Yes.
There was one particular time I was working evening shift. So I got off at 10 o'clock.
Yep.
And I didn't come home. What were you thinking? I never asked you, what were you thinking?
What in the world is going on? I don't have time for somebody coming to the door, ringing my doorbell at 11, 12 o'clock at night, telling me that my husband has been shot and he's dead. I didn't want that to happen. That whole night until you called me and told me where you were, I was literally frantic. Like, it was terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I called her and I was like, hey, first of all, I think, man, it was probably like almost 1 o'clock in the morning at this time. And I was supposed to get off at 10.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I was in and here's the crazy thing. The hospital I was at was literally right down the street. You could see the hospital from our house.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Right. So this incident happened. I got in a fight on the side of the road.
You talked about that before on the show.
Yeah. And so now you hearing, my wife's perspective of it and what it was like for her. Because let me just say this real quick, because my supervisor was there and he was like, hey, Corey, you want me to go get your wife? No, don't do that. Don't do that. I'll call. And that's how I end up calling you. And because I knew what that would do to her.
Yeah.
If he went there to go get her and pick her up.
Yeah, it's almost like a play of emotions.
Exactly.
You see someone else there talking about you who ain't there.
Right.
Well, that's playing on some emotions. Just let me call my wife. If I'm fine, I know I'm fine. Let me call my wife and let her know that everything's good. I don't want somebody else to do that in my place under something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Q and I had, and I'm sure Q's gonna remember this, but we had a call together once where a guy was sitting in his truck on the side of the road and he had committed suicide. He had shot himself with a 357. So naturally, it was pretty messy. I mean, you name it. Head split open, blood all over the ceiling of the car, all of the ingredients on the center console with the gun. It was a very messy, nasty scene. So we responded to that together. She had to take photographs up close and personal and everything, to the point where the guy had to be obviously was pulled out of the car by medical staff, and by that time he was all stiff, and the body was stiff and hard to work with. So after both of us seeing something like that, we talk about that together, and I think that kind of helped us out a little bit when you see stuff like that. After a while, as an officer, this is what I mean by you begin to be numb about stuff like that it no longer shocks you in the same way that it would shock someone who's never seen it before, right? And here we are, me and my wife together. Well, we see this together, and we can talk with each other about it and move on with our lives, and we get it out, get it off our chest, and feel better. Is that how you felt, Q?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Because we were able to talk about it and then move on. I mean, it sounds kind of bad, but that's what we have to do to go to the next call.
Right.
Yeah. And that was another reason why I like to. We don't live. I don't live where I work. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people have questions about cops. Why don't you live where you work? I do see advantages to police officers living where they work, as far as being involved in the community that they serve. But for me, I preferred not to live where I work, because when I drove around those streets of the city, it felt like work.
Right.
And when I'm off, I'm off.
Right.
I want a whole different scene, whole different people. I want everything to be different. So I love driving away from the city that I lived in to someplace completely different, because I think it allowed me to de-stress a lot easier.
Yeah.
And that was a little different, being that from the state's perspective, I mean, the whole state was my work, my work area. You know what I mean? I didn't have a particular zone, but we hear stories like this, and our hearts go out to the wives of these police officers, and again, we just want to thank you all for, first of all, for joining us tonight. Alyssa, Katrina, thank you all for joining us. We can get to your comments here in a second, but we just want to say thank you all to the ladies behind the Thin Blue Line who hold it down every night while their husbands, and to the husbands who are holding it down, because I'm sure the role is just the same. But you know what I mean? So we thank you all for what you have done, ladies out there. And because, like I said, too often when we hear from the wives of a police officer, it's usually they've already been in an officer involved shooting and have lost their lives. And then we hear from the wife at that point. But we're not getting her perspective of, what life was like for her while her husband was still here. We're hearing the after effects, what it's like now. So, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was just going to say, Tone had a question for Q, and I'll let Q answer this. But he says, how often did you and Mike interact with each other while on the same shift? Any code sevens together?
all the time.
Code 7, for those viewers who may not know, code 7 is lunch, basically. Okay.
So when Mike and I worked together on the same shift, okay, when we had our same shift, 6 to 4, we would drive in together. I drive, he'd sleep.
Figures.
We would get to work.
Hey, I had a heated hoodie. Man, that was the best sleep, man. Driving in that passenger seat. That was the best.
We would get to work. We do our own jobs. And then we would come together. We would eat lunch together every day. And other people in the department are like, oh my gosh, don't you two get sick of each other? You ride into work together, you eat together, you go home together. And I'm like, I love him.
Right.
But we did. We had so much fun together that eating lunch with him was just nothing.
Right.
Like right now, I miss not eating lunch with him.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
We would pass each other on different calls for service. You know, she might respond to a call that I might be on sometimes. That happened, I wouldn't say all the time, but every once in a while, that definitely would happen where Q would go and show up at a call that I'm on. You know, we give our little googly eye to each other and keep moving. You know what I'm saying? Or one thing that was famous for Q is one of her responsibilities was towing cars, illegal parkers, or towing cars that were stolen and recovered. She would call me. She would call me to assist her in towing cars because she didn't want to be in a situation where she was towing a car and the owner comes out and starts some big mess. So she wanted a uniformed police officer out there to be with her while she towed these cars. It was either me or it was another officer, but if it was in my area, then I would be the one to respond over there. So
exactly.
What's that?
You did good. Why not call you?
Yeah.
I used to call Corey when I worked at 7-Eleven at night. He worked night shift. I'm like, Corey, there's a car out here. It's been out here for a while. Can you come check it out?
Right.
I can see that.
But Mike would say, oh my gosh, we got like 5 other officers. Why are you always calling me? Like, get over here.
Right.
Get over here.
Yeah. So we have a question here from Frank. He says, all right, ladies, what's the hardest part of being a wife of a police officer? Who wants to answer that first?
Stacey.
Honestly, not knowing if he's going to come home after his shift. That's the hardest part, hands down.
Yep.
To me, there was nothing else harder but that. Yep. Not knowing the unknown.
And I agree. So when Mike worked swing shift 2 to midnight, and I had to get up the next morning for a 6 o'clock shift, I literally would not sleep until I heard the garage door open. Then I was like, okay, now I could go back to sleep because I couldn't sleep until he was back home. So I needed him home. Yeah. So
were you the same way, Stacey?
Yeah. When Corey worked midnights, 10 to 6 in the morning, I did not get any sleep until he was home.
Yep. Absolutely.
I did not like those shifts at all.
I hated those shifts.
Yes.
So what was your thought process like? I mean, did you like have certain thoughts, or were you just like really just nervous to the point where you just couldn't fall asleep, or you know what I mean? You didn't get down into the fourth realm of sleep. You stayed at realm 1 or 2 because you would always get like a feeling or something.
I'm thinking it was nerves that did it, because I always stayed positive with the thoughts. Like, he's going to be okay. He's going to come home. I haven't, gotten a phone call or somebody's come to the door. So we're good. I just think it was the nerves that did it. Not knowing.
Right.
The nerves. Anxious for you to come home and you're okay.
Right. And I knew that if Mike got off on time, within 30 minutes, he should be home. So there was some days it's like 45 minutes, an hour, and he's still not home. And I'm calling him. Where are you? Oh, I have to finish writing a report. Well, you need to call me. He's like, why didn't I wake you up? Well, I'm up. Exactly.
I'm up anyway.
I'm not going to sleep until you come home. So I'm up. So you should call and let me know this.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I said, go ahead, Mike. No, I was just gonna say, because like I said, if I had that window of time, if I wasn't home, Stacy was blowing my phone like, where are you at? You good?
Right.
Oh, and if I wasn't on top of it, Alyssa was on top of it, our daughter.
Yeah. She would be calling like, Daddy, where you at? You good? You on your way home? Like, yeah, I'm good. Well, Mom, what's wrong? Well, you ain't home yet.
A phone call. That's all we need. A phone call.
Yeah.
Yep.
What's up, Blackjack?
Tone got to. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, there you go.
I was just saying, what's up, Blackjack? Go ahead, Mike. Yeah, Tone got a question.
Tone got a question. He says, when your husbands finally retire, was it a feeling of relief?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Because now I can sleep through the night and get up to go to work.
Exactly.
Normal hours.
Now I'm gonna ask. Let's get into some juicy stuff. Now it's a lot of stuff going on with cops and social media and social injustice, things like that. A lot of it centered around police brutality and things like that. Now I'm not gonna turn this into a political thing at all. Me and Corey, you guys know we don't do a political show. We just talk about some facts and give you our views on it. But for the wives, since you guys are married to police officers. Your families know your husbands. Your friends know your husbands. People who may not be associated with you may know that your husbands are police officers. How do you feel about that? Do you ever get? Let me rephrase this question. Do you ever get looks, or do you ever feel any pressure from any people about? Oh, your husband's a police officer. You know what I'm saying? Do you feel any ill will or do you feel any positivity about it? Or how do you feel about that with your husbands being police officers? Either of you, both of you, matter of fact.
Well, I think for me, my friends know you. So I get the positive side. There are some people who just hate cops. And then I explain, they are human, right? Mm-hmm. Each cop is different. You can't lump them all into the same category. Everyone's different. Behind the uniform, it's a human being, just like everyone else that does other jobs besides being a police officer. Mm-hmm. So, I kind of try to explain it. But if people are just going to lump everyone into being a bad police officer, there's no way of changing that person's mind.
Right.
Because I can tell you right now, if Mike was a bad police officer, there's no way I would have stayed married with him. I'm like, oh, heck no, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
Right. If he did anything questionable on my end.
Yeah.
Well, I am a Steelers fan, with you being a Raider fan, that might be.
Oh my God!
We
really?
made it through that. We made it through that. So I think
I'm glad I'm not into football. I should say NFL.
Right. What were you gonna say, Stacey?
I have to say my friends and family were positive about Corey being a state trooper. I did get some looks out in public from people I don't know because I had a t-shirt that said Blue Lives Matter. And a lot of them, I will have to say, were not of my race. It was other races that would give me dirty looks. And I took it as because of everything going on with the police officers, and they're only showing certain circumstances that happen.
Right.
So I just okay, whatever, and just, went on about my business, but I didn't let it bother me none.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. We got any. Katrina said, let me see. I got to find what her comment was. We were talking about if we didn't answer our phones, and I can say I believe she was married. Her ex-husband was a police officer, and she says that if he didn't answer or wasn't at home at a certain time, then she started reaching out to the hospitals and calling everybody else, trying to figure out, hey, where her husband was at, and like I said, I can only imagine how that would be if she was on the other foot. Because even now when she's gone and I'm like, man, she should have went to the store, and I know how far it is. I do the whole time, speed, and distance in my head. And I'm like, oh, she should have been back by now. You know what I mean? Hey, I may get on the phone call. Hey, where you at? You good?
You good?
You know? So I just, can't imagine, how you guys feeling. And we have that same feeling a little bit too, because like, man, we're scared out of our minds. I mean, I ain't gonna lie to you. That's what makes me. I would like to think was what made me a good officer, because I had that a little bit of fear factor in me to kind of help me keep my head on a swivel, to make sure I was, always going to be doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard, and I don't. I'm glad I never had to be in a situation where I had to get, blasted out in the public eye, demonized out in the public eye, because I was sitting here doing my job, and I couldn't imagine what that does to an officer's family, not just the officer himself, but like you said, when we were in backstage before we started shows, like nobody knows how that wife feels, like seeing her husband getting drugged through the media like he's just the worst thing since sliced bread, and then trying to hold the family together,
Right.
and what are the kids going through, right?
Yeah.
Are they getting bullied at school? Are they getting threatened at school because they hear that their dad was involved in the police officer involved shooting? It's tough on the family, and I just, my thing is, I just want people to understand, like, all police officers are human. They have families. These wives are affected as well. When we walked out that door, every decision I made was going to affect my family.
That's true. That's true. You can lose your house. You make the wrong decision, you lose your house. Where your family gonna go? You know what I'm saying? You can get fired. There are so many consequences that could take place. Unfortunately, the media shows more of the opposite. You know what I'm saying? But it is a fact that you make the one wrong decision, especially in today's climate. One bad decision can mess you and your family up. Frank makes a comment. He says, while on a road trip through an area your husband served, do they ever show spots where they did a call at or say something like, I locked somebody up there or something like that? Well, what you got to say, Stacy? I see you cracking up.
Corey did, or he would show me his honeydew spots, as he called them. He'd be like, I used to go right there and just relax, or this is where I got into a fight with that dude on the side of the road, and he would pinpoint things out.
It's like you're giving a tour,
right?
Of the interstate, and over here, right, 4 years ago.
Do you remember where such and such is at? Right there is where it happened at.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, that, because I used to say that to Q. I mean, stuff like, I can't tell you how many times I say, that guy or gal looks familiar. I think I arrested that person before.
Oh my God.
Or something like that.
I'm like, just keep walking. Let's go. Right.
And you know what else I used to do? I still do it to this day, probably. But when I'm just out and about driving around, I see violations and I'm quick to point them out to Q. Oh, you see that brake light out? Or look, or I'll ask Q, I'll say, now what would you pull that car over for?
And I said, for nothing. Let them go.
I do find myself doing that. It's just a habit. I can't. It's just a
habit. It's a habit, because Corey still does it too.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're not in there anymore. Let like you. No, just keep going.
Go.
Right, just keep going.
And you be shocked, like, man, that car just ran the red light. Man,
yeah.
So Megan has a question for you guys. She says, as wives, what conversations have you had with your children about daddy being a police officer? That's a really good question.
It's a good question.
Stacey, you want to answer that?
When Corey decided that that's the route that he was going to take next, we sat down with the kids and told them that's what he was going to do next. After, or it might have been during training, we told them to be careful being out there now. I mean, not just now, but before as well. And that, when your dad goes to work, that's it. It's work. We just have to be very mindful and, pray that he does come home every night.
Right.
It's rough life.
Yeah. And then you have to explain to the kids why your dad isn't going to be home for Thanksgiving and for Christmas and the birthday parties on the Saturdays and the sporting events on Saturdays. So it's a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
That, he tried to get the day off, but unfortunately it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So we're just going to have to roll out together.
Yeah, I mean,
and unfortunately for my kid, all three of my kids, I was a police officer when they were born, so they kind of, grew up knowing, this is what dad does, and they didn't know anything different from what their dad did, other than what I told them. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Military before, something like that. But I mean, since they were born, I was always a police officer. So.
Yeah, that was a really good question, man. For us as well, I think being in the military and being away a lot, I think they also got accustomed to me being gone. So I've missed plenty of birthdays. I
Plenty of
missed
holidays.
plenty of holidays, and we've always gotten to the habit, like if we knew I was going to be gone during the holiday season, we always celebrated like a week early.
Oh, okay.
And so that's how we did it. And even still, like as an officer, yes, state police is very flexible. So we were able to do some things that were, I would still be able to make it home for, dinner and then go back out on the road or whatever. So you make it work.
Yeah.
It is an emotional roller coaster. Your kids, I don't know, Mike, would you equate, teaching and raising our kids a certain way? Would you equate it to almost like our kids being kids of a preacher's wife? You always heard, well, you're a preacher's son, so you're expected to act a certain way. Right. I don't think I ever did. I think I was more like, hey, you guys know you got to really be careful who you hang around with because of what I do. You know what I do. Right?
Yeah.
So, you gotta.
For us, it's funny you say that because my father probably said that to me about my kids more than I said it to my kids. You know what they always say, police officers' kids can be the worst sometimes because they like to rebel because their dad is a police officer supposed to represent everything that you're supposed to do, right? And well, we don't want to do that, So I had some of that going on, but I mean, I tried to raise my kids. Tell you the truth, I tried to raise them without the uniform, without me being a police officer or trying not to sound like a police officer. You know what I'm saying? Whether it worked or not, I don't know. We'll see what happens as they grow, as they continue to mature. We'll see what advice they take from me or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It is what it is. You try your best as a police officer because there are certain things like the wives say that you're not going to be able to be a part of sometimes, or sometimes you may not be able to have as heavy of a hand in their upbringing as maybe you'd like to,
Right.
Right. But it can be tough. I think raising kids as a police officer sometimes can be even tougher than somebody who's not a police officer.
Yeah, because of the expectations.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Zach says, plus Corey, you raise great children. I had the pleasure of meeting two of them, and man, they outworked much older people I've watched. Hey, thank you, Zach.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate that.
They enjoyed being down there. We were down in Texas last year. We had the business down there.
They had so much fun.
Storm. Yeah, they had so much fun, and it was great down there with Frank and Zach, and so that was good. We have another question here for you ladies. And Megan says, have the children ever expressed fear of being of you being police officer? I guess
So
that's
you and
for,
Mike answer it.
yeah, I guess that's for us.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll start off. I mean, my kids, I don't know if it really grabbed them that way to where they were in fear. And again, we tried to create that environment where we didn't want them to be afraid of anything. We wanted to make sure they knew what to expect. We made sure we explained to them why I wasn't there sometimes, or whatever was going on, or they were just so busy about their own daily lives that sometimes they may not have had a chance to think about, oh, that's right, Dad ain't here because he's doing this call or he's handling that detail or part of this investigation. I don't think they really were exposed too much to that side of it, to tell you the truth. So I fear, no, I wouldn't use fear at all. They had knowledge, general knowledge of what was going on with me at work, and you know, things that we couldn't avoid. But I don't think they were ever afraid the same way. But that's kids, you know, kids
Yeah.
sometimes takes them a minute to grasp those kind of things. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, that's how it was with us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I know what most of our kids didn't really ask too many questions, but I think Quincy did. He would ask the most, like,
Yeah.
Dad, what did you do today? Did you lock anybody up today? Things like that. But I don't even think they knew. I don't know. I don't know if Stacy told them or not about the fight I've been into, and then you having to go to the hospital to get me. Heck, I don't even think my parents know about that story neither. Uh, uh, but far as the kids go, I don't think they really ever, to me at least, they might have to my wife expressed, fear, of me being out there in the job that I was doing. I don't think they did. It was kind of like okay, well, hey, Dad's a cop. All right,
Yeah,
It's just another
it is
job,
what it
another
is.
day.
yeah.
Right.
Right.
I
Yep.
mean, to
Yeah.
them, it was more like, it is what it is, And
Yeah.
I don't
You
think
got some stickers, Dad?
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
they
think
didn't, I don't think,
my daughter might have asked every once in a while. I remember her asking me, like, like you said, did you arrest anybody today, Dad, or something like that? But I mean, not often. But she was the only one who thought about it long enough to actually ask that question.
yeah,
Because she's a girl.
right.
Because she's a girl, right? But other than that, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really, too much. Like you said, kids are kids, whatever. Um, and yeah, Zach, I mean, it's also different times too. I mean, they're more into their video games and not
Yeah.
really.
That's true.
I mean, because our kids, they're well, three of them are grown now. We had one at home,
Yeah.
but they were never into, what's going on, the whole social justice thing. They're not into all that. So a lot of questions and concerns for them it really never came up. Uh, Alyssa says, wrong comment. She
She got a
says,
couple of
I wouldn't say
comments.
fear. Yeah, she said I wouldn't say fear. More so just nerves, anxiety of the unknown. And
Yeah.
this is our daughter, Alyssa. So
Again,
yeah,
a female
A female.
perspective there, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, and you worry about it and you try not to focus on it and you just try to stay positive. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I just don't think the general public really knows the amount of level of stress that police officer wife, goes through. Yeah, like Megan said earlier, she prays every day for, her husband to come back home and not, man, and she couldn't imagine the stress level of or the worry that you all have to or had to go through as a police officer's wife. And so that's why we titled it, the wives behind a thin blue line, because what's really keeping us together is you all, and giving us the strength and the confidence. We got to go out here and we got to take care of our families and be that provider. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing for us was to come home to you all.
Come on. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Leave
there's
work at work and
nothing
come
else.
home to my
Yep.
family. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Go ahead.
no, you go ahead, Mike. I'm good.
I was just saying, like Zach was saying, media and social media and stuff like that were not outlets at that point in mainstream. At that, right, when back in the day, it wasn't prevalent as it is now. But and like you say, Corey, you know, a lot of people don't understand the stress of police officers, and this is just a show to just give them a little inside look at police officers and their wives. Another aspect from a wife's point of view of you know, having a police officer in their family, being married to police officer, and what they might go through. That's the whole purpose of this particular episode. We got a lot of viewers this time, just like almost as much as last show. So that tells me that's a pretty good topic.
Pretty good topic, great conversation. That's what it's all about, having a conversation. So we're gonna get ready to go ahead and wrap this one up, y'all. We appreciate you all joining us tonight. If y'all can just take a moment, like, share, and subscribe this out. So you know, you never know who this might help emotionally, and give them the strength and confidence to know that, you know, they're not alone. There are other wives out here who have some of the same feelings that you all have. And who knows, throughout this, somebody might get another idea to start a YouTube channel. So whatever, whatever comes out of this, we just hope you all be blessed. Enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you for joining, Zach, Megan, Frank, Blackjack, Goat, Katrina. The list goes on. Tone. Thank you all for joining us tonight. We greatly appreciate it. And if I forgot anybody, charge it to my head and not my heart. And we love y'all. And we'll see y'all next week. Ladies, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye, Stace.
See y'all
Thank you.
next week. Oh, Chris just came on. Chris, thank you all. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.